Alrighty, we're ready to jump into our next panel. This panel highlights our amazing key spouses with some of the best practices that they've been using with their squadrons and units. So maybe that you can learn from them and utilize them with your units. This panel will be facilitated by Ms. Trisha Galvin. She is the Personal and Work-Life Program Manager at AFPC, Airmen and Family Operations Branch. Without further ado, over to you, Ms. Galvin.
Thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here, and I cannot wait to hear from our next panel. We have 3 key spouses that are going to share their best practices. And my hope is that their best practices will inspire and motivate you to adopt maybe one, if not all 3 best practices at your installation. These best practices change the quality of life for our airmen, guardians, and families. So it's very important that if doable at your installation, that we make it a norm across all the bases. So let's get started. Our first speaker is at Ramstein Air Base, Miss Amy Beck. We've got to give her a special round of applause because it is early for Miss Beck. How are you holding up at the wee hours of the morning?
I am doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Good. It's all yours.
Thank you. For those that have PCSed overseas before, you know that moving OCONUS is a struggle. Even those that have PCSed a dozen times in their lives still agree that overseas assignments are the most challenging, and it can take the longest time to acclimate. This is something that overseas we have to factor in when deciding how to approach relocation as a key spouse. I try to make sure that the sponsor shares the key spouse or the spouse sponsor information when they first make contact with the new family. If I don't hear from the spouse, I ask the sponsor to give my information one last time prior to their arrival in case they have any last minute questions. There's so many factors people have to think about with overseas moves, so most spouses have a lot of questions that they want answered about housing, the schools, jobs, just living overseas. It is incredibly important to make sure you're able to lead them to the right place to get their questions answered correctly, especially because often the process has changed since you arrived at the base. Your local ANFRC is always a great resource for that. The day of arrival, I try to be at the terminal if at all possible. We're lucky at Ramstein, and most people fly into the terminal on base, which makes it much easier. I try to provide a welcome bag, oftentimes that's funded by the Booster Club. Families come in jet-lagged and exhausted, and I remember just how stressful those first 24 hours were, having to not only settle into the TLF, but also figure out what we were going to eat those first few days. Especially with jet lag, a lot of people will wake up in the middle of the night, and at most overseas locations, everything closes early and can be closed on Sundays off base. There's nothing worse than being stuck. Next slide, please. In the welcome bag, I provide a starter kit of essentials. If I've made contact with the family beforehand, I try to tailor it to them and their allergies, but as a basis, I try to have coffee or energy drinks, some sort of breakfast food like cereal, German shelf-stable milk, or oatmeal, and easy meals like pasta. The TLFs locally normally have a kitchen, so it makes it much easier, but I try to make sure the meals are also as microwave-friendly as possible, just in case. Something I wish that I had remembered during our first shopping trip that I always try to include in the welcome bags is salt and pepper. If they have kids, I add in snacks for them and juice boxes. And if they have pets, I'll try to grab something for them as well. Helpful things to add that, again, you don't realize you will need until it's too late are a few laundry pods, converter plugs, and a parking meter for off-base. Just to note, this bag is not supposed to replace their first shopping trip, but can give them just a little help and show that the unit cares about them. The flights can shift, and the stores can be closed depending on what time they get in. To help them acclimate, their bag also includes the local newspaper, Find It Guide, and base magazines, as well as the Welcome to Germany booklet provided by Stars and Stripes. I also include a Welcome to the Unit pamphlet And I made cards with my name, phone number, and email address for them to keep in their wallet just in case they ever need me. The biggest issues I've seen when families PCS overseas is them just not having a connection to the community. A lot of people come here and they think they just won't need any help. After they get here, though, it's a completely different story. So reaching out again once they've started to settle in is just so important. Offer to take them to the local market, add them to local Facebook groups, or get coffee. I try to do my check-ins at 2 days and 2 weeks. And I'll make contact again before any unit event like a barbecue to make sure they know they're welcome and so I know to look for them there. And if at that point they still just don't seem receptive, then know that they have my information if they need me and know to step back until they reach out. Moving overseas can be overwhelming. Even knowing just that there's someone there that they can ask questions to without going through their sponsor can make it a lot easier to adjust and give them a better time overall.
All right, thank you so much. I'm looking at a couple of questions, and one of the questions is it hard to go to the terminal during peak PCS season to meet all the incoming families?
It definitely can be a challenge, but I think that's one of those times when it's really important to have not just your key spouses, but a team to be able to help facilitate this. So even if you have 2 or 3 other people that you know that you can call if you need help getting over there or just to welcome someone, or if it's just the first sergeant that you hand the welcome bag over to beforehand, as long as there's a friendly face there to help them out, that's really what's important.
Exactly. And what is the average donation that the Booster Club makes per family for the goodie bag?
It really depends on the unit and how active the Booster Club is, but I tried to keep the bags at around $20. But a lot of these resources in here are free, like all of the different information sections. And for other parts, I tried to source it as cheap as possible. So like buying in bulk or getting the converter plugs and parking meters at the thrift shop on base. Different things like that can help keep it as low as you need it to be.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll have time for more questions after the last panelist. Thank you. Our next speaker is Ms. Patrina Leblanc, and she is from Scott Air Force Base. Over to you, Patrina.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Patrina Leblanc, and I'm the Key Spouse Mentor for the 375th Civil Engineering Squadron at Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. Our best practice is the deliberate partnering of our sponsor program and our Key Spouse program. We developed our best practice because we saw families PCSing in that needed immediate referrals or squadron assistance, and they were falling through the cracks. It usually takes a spouse time to connect with the squadron, group, or base. We realized if families move in between our Key Spouse meetings when we received our updated rosters, they might not get contacted or welcomed for a month or 2. We recognized the benefit of getting them connected with the squadron before they even arrived to the base. We saw how important this was. We had a the pre-PCS connection could be when we had a member move in with a wife that was late in her pregnancy. Their goods were delivered or delayed due to several things, coming from an Oconus location, area labor shortages, and COVID. They had been sleeping in their new home on air mattresses for weeks using a pot, a pan, paper plates, what I call PCS indoor camping. Their household goods were finally delivered the day she was released from the hospital after giving birth. Luckily, we found a few days before, and a team was assembled to help the member on delivery day, and a place was provided for the family to rest during the delivery. If there would have been a key spouse contact before they arrived, resources could have been provided before to help the family, and we would have had all of it in place for delivery day before the last minute scramble that actually ended up taking place. The sponsor program is great, but the sponsor usually only talks to the inbound member. Having key spouse contact before the PCS is a way to ensure the spouse has someone to voice family PCS concerns to. Our squadron's best practice is building a partnership between the sponsors and key spouses, and for us, that means aligning them to shops and flights. CE is a big unit with many elements within the squadron that are very different from each other. We range from explosive ordnance technicians and firefighters to engineers and entomologists. It's a wide, extensive range of unique work, training, TDY, and deployment schedules. Because of this diversity, we found that it helps to have our key spouses connected with specific sponsors and shops. Our key spouses are, for the most part, a spouse of someone in those shops. And because of this intentional pairing, they understand the unique challenges that families within those shops may face. Pre-work had to be done to make our best practice a reality. The leadership created a key spouse welcome letter template and handed it over to the key spouses to individually tailor before it was going to be sent out. Included with the letter is a form that requests spouse and family information. Both were added to the existing squadron welcome package that each sponsor sends out when they are appointed and notified of a new inbound member. We also try to schedule our key spouse meetings and our sponsor meetings on the same day, one after another. It's just one more step to ensure our sponsors have met their key spouse and feel comfortable passing on the key spouse developed welcome letter and requesting information as part of the welcome package. It drives home the point that our unit expects a partnership between the sponsor and the key spouse program before the family arrives. This partnership with the sponsors allows the key spouses to connect with the families and provide resources much earlier than before. The welcome letter also includes useful social media pages such as the Squadron Spouse Facebook page and the Scott Spouse Facebook page, so the spouse can begin to become part of the community before they even step foot on the base. Families feel connected to the squadron and base before they arrive, and the key spouses and leadership can begin preparing for the family if extra support is needed. We believe this relieves some relocation anxiety for families. Although the effort we put into aligning our key spouses and sponsors to our shops to meet the need of a 400+ person squadron may not be necessary for every unit, the core of our best practice can work with any squadron. Pairing the sponsor and the key spouse early on and capturing not only the inbound member, but also the family gives not only a great first impression, but also allows for support immediately upon arrival to be more effective when you families need it the most.
Thank you so much. The first thought that comes to mind is, what a successful partnership. Now, was it difficult to get buy-in from the commander to establish this partnership?
So how I present it to the commander is a well-supported family is a more resilient family. A more resilient family has the member focusing on the mission. So I would tie it all into readiness, because that's kind of what the commanders are hearing is we're supposed to be supporting families so that the member can focus on the mission. So it's a readiness issue.
Thank you. That's awesome. We did have another chat. It's not directly related to your presentation, but let's talk about offering and mentoring to spouses so that they support their active duty member and encourage them to stay on active duty. We can brainstorm on that. It's a little outside the norm. Do you have any thoughts on that immediately?
So I think one of the biggest kind of things that I'm kind of seeing and issues is that the way we keep active duty members staying on active duty is having spouses supported. So letting them kind of finding out if they want to go back to school and providing resources for that, finding out if they want employment in the community and providing resources for that. Because I think a happy, well-adjusted spouse keeps a military member on active duty.
Absolutely. Fabulous response. Thank you. And we will go on to our last panelist, which is Miss Trisha Newman. She is at Hurlburt Field in sunny Florida. Over to you, Trisha.
Hello, good evening. I'm so honored to be here and share with you. Like Ms. Teresa said, I am Trisha Newman, and my husband and I are stationed at Hurlburt Field. That's in the panhandle of Florida. I'm here to talk to you about what we call the VIP treatment. That's welcoming new members to the squadron. First, though, you might be wondering why the slide says spooky spouses. And that's because we trace the squadron heritage back to Vietnam when they flew the spooky gunship. That was the call sign of the airplane then. And they've kept the name as a reminder of the squadron history. Anyway, back to the VIP treatment. It first starts on day one, the day the new service member arrives on station and checks in with the squadron. One of the first things they do when meeting the front office team is to fill out a spouse information sheet for the unit secretary. She is a critical part of our process because she directly interacts with all new members, and she's best placed to identify new spouses and families for our team. The secretary then does two important things. She provides the new spouse information to me as the lead spouse, and she also gives the member a welcome folder, which is full of helpful information about the base and the local area. I'll talk through the welcome folder in a moment. After I receive the new spouse information, I personally contact the spouse and welcome them to the squadron. I usually start with a text because that seems to be the easiest way to make contact now. But if they don't reply back, I will follow up with a phone call or even reaching back out to the active duty member to ensure that I have the correct information. In my initial contact with the spouse, I introduce them to information outlets that we have available, such as the private squadron Facebook page, our base Airmen and Family Readiness Center, and then the base Facebook page where they have their events posted. I also informed the spouse of the next upcoming event and offered to meet them in the parking lot to walk in together and introduce them to other spouses. I know for me, that was one of the most difficult parts of joining something new or going to a new place is walking in and either not knowing exactly where to go or seeing that everybody else is already paired off and talking with friends. So to me, it's important to meet them outside as a good way to ease their first introduction into the squadron. This lets me meet them face to face and then personally introduce them to other spouses. I want them to feel welcomed into those conversations during their first interaction, especially within the unit. As the new spouse is getting settled, I continue to serve as their key spouse until they feel more connected. And then they're assigned to a flight key spouse to continue their engagement for the remainder of the time with the squadron. Next slide, please. So I mentioned earlier that we provide a welcome packet to our members and their families. This packet includes a welcome letter that my husband, the commander, and I wrote together. There is also a background page detailing our squadron's history and accomplishments. We have a picture of the squadron patch along with the description of the image and its significance. Another page includes helpful contact information for squadron and base resources. Since our spooky spouse Facebook page is private, we provide information on how to join because it can be difficult to find. We also have a page of annual squadron events to look forward to. There's the ever important OPSEC information. And then also many of the families are new to the area, so we provide a base map, medical group information, and just local school details. And then also other information, since we're not the only resource, so we include things from Airmen and Family Readiness Center and their flyers for spouse orientation dates and upcoming support program offerings. And lastly, location specific. We are on the Gulf Coast, so we provide hurricane information and tips and helpful links and resources. Thank you all so much for having me here.
Thanks so much, Trisha. You know, I've seen the comments this morning and this evening that people really love the idea that you're walking spouses in. You know, all the introverts love that. And so, you know, you're building those relationships, and that's what this is all about, is building that relationship. As a result of building relationships, have you seen an increase in people coming to functions or going to HeartLink or just responding more frequently?
I do think so. Even bringing up HeartLink, that makes me think of our base just recently redid the Welcome Spouse program. And I reached out to all the new spouses and offered to go with them to that. And I did have positive feedback in return of multiple spouses going to the programs that I don't know if they would have gone otherwise, but I've been pleased with the turnout and just the welcoming atmosphere.
That is remarkable. Thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you to all the panelists. Y'all are very, very busy, and taking time of your day to share your successes is very special. So at this time, I'm going to turn the mic over to Ms. Perkins.
Thank you so much, Teresa, and thank you to our Key Spouse Best Practice panelists. I think we would all love to have you as our Key Spouses to welcome us in like you have done. We love hearing about your best practices. In fact, in addition to the follow-ons from this engagement series being posted on the website you see on your screen now, or if you're joining on the phone by Googling AFPC Key Spouse, there is a place that you too can put and submit your best practice so that maybe one day we can have you talking to us on here. So thank you for sharing, Key Spouses. I hope that encourages others to do some of the things that you've been doing to welcome our relocating spouses into the unit. We appreciate all of your hard work. Lastly, after I turn it over to Ms. Brown and Mrs. Raymond for closing comments, please hang around for a moment or two so that you can fill out the survey that really helps us know how we can better put on these events based on your feedback. So at the very end, there's just a six question short survey that you can take a picture of the QR code and fill out some feedback for us. So Mrs. Raymond and Mrs. Brown, if you want to come on for some closing comments, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Andrea, so very much. And to all the Key Spouses and mentors, thank you for your service. You are a direct link to resilience, and we are thankful to what you do each and every day for our airmen, our guardians, civilians, and their loved ones. And to the team who put today's event together, our heartfelt gratitude to Miss Andrea Perkins, Randy Ramstein, Krista Thomas, and to all the A1, S1, and Air Force Personnel Center team members. I know a lot of coordination went into this event today, and I also want to give a shout out to all the worker bees and team members who were answering questions in the Q&A and chat. I think I saw over like 57 questions, and it's a lot of on-the-spot answering, so thank you very, very much. To all the spouses that are here tonight, I just want to share a few words of wisdom of my own. I've been a military spouse for about 35 years. I don't think many of you have been alive that long, but it has been 17 moves during those 35 years. I have to admit, they were very challenging. Some of them were just really, really difficult. Multiple high schools. I didn't have a lot of opportunities at the very beginning for spouse employment. And we had experienced a 9.0 earthquake, and our family was evacuated one time. And so, despite all of the challenges though, I could say for all of us and our family, we would do it all over again. It has been a privilege. We have had wonderful experiences, learning new cultures, new communities, and as we all shared tonight, food is a big thing, but also those lifelong friendships that have really been so supportive to us and to our kids, and we would do it over again. So as hard as it is, know that we appreciate you. When you're relocating, we are grateful to you. Our air and space forces need you. So look for resources, build your support networks, and reach out to your Key Spouses. So thank you for moving. Thank you for relocating. And finally, I like to say thank you to those awesome Key Spouse inspiring best practices from Amy, Trisha, and Patrina. You guys rock. Your inspirations, and thank you for going above and beyond and welcoming and supporting those in your units. So thank you all for being here tonight. Thanks again, and have a great night and take care. And here's Shireen.
Hi, Molly. Thank you again for sharing that bit of information. That was absolutely wonderful. This has been a packed 2 hours of information. Thank you to all of our PCS focused panelists to speak to those critical areas of concern and providing us with an overall big picture of what is happening here and now as well as going forward. You know, many of you are taking advantage of this time to ask your questions and share your comments and suggestions, which is what we had hoped for. Being prepared and ready for this transition will help you make this move really smooth. And how about our featured key spouses? They are certainly creative and quite eager at making our families feel welcome. I so enjoyed hearing what best practices and toolkits of our key spouses have put together, and they are finding them so successful. Sharing is spreading the care for our families and helping one another thrive. Amy Beck, I must apologize to you for earlier I mentioned that you were located in Colorado when actually you're in Germany. So a special thank you to you for staying awake in these wee hours of the morning to share your best practices. We are all most grateful. And to Patrina Leblanc and Trisha Newman, thank you for sharing your best practices also. These are a great way for the rest of us to put them in our toolkits, not only just for some of the things that you're doing, but maybe even for some of our military spouses. And as I talk to some of our military spouses who might be out there in the audience, can you see yourself as a key spouse being the change you'd like to see in your community? Perhaps you've been a beneficiary of these services and want to pay it forward. It's a wonderful way to support your neighbor, your unit, and your community. So I'd like to take a minute or two just to thank all the people involved both in front of and behind the scenes to make this event possible. The planning committee who came together, our host this evening, Miss Andrea Perkins, thank you for what you're doing, along with Lieutenant Colonel Edith Smith, Randy Ramstein, Krista Thomas, Teresa Galvin, Ellie Bogensberger, I hope I said that right, Erin Collier, and then for some of those folks taking those questions behind the scenes, Craig Punches, Melissa Jordan, Danny Martinez, John Uday, I hope I got that right, Sharon Thompson, and then on video, believe it or not, Fred Chappa, and our facilitators, of course, Mike Coltrane and Teresa Galvin. Thank you for what you do, and your involvement with this third key spouse is so, so appreciated. As Molly was just sharing a little bit about her history of moving and sharing some of the challenges that she's faced, and I kind of joined her a little bit in the number of moves she had made. She had mentioned earlier that it was 17 moves, and I'm right up there in the double digits right with her. It's not been an easy process all along, but it's something that I've come to learn to expect. It's interesting how much, the challenges that you face in the move, you get used to after a while. It sounds really strange, but that itch comes every couple of years for me. I've been doing this even as a child and then into adulthood, and there's a lot of things going on. We are an EFMP family, and so hearing those issues about how to make that change, and when we find out that we are getting ready to move, you can imagine, I'm sure as many of you do, your mind starts spinning as to where you're going to go, where you're going to live, how are you going to help your kids, and if possible, if you can get a job, what does that look like? I agree with Molly that, despite all the challenges that we've encountered, I wouldn't change a thing. They have helped me meet new people, have connected with folks that I'm still friends with, and I've grown ever more resilient as a result of this. So it's been a most exciting ride, and I would continue to do it going forward. In fact, I know after this position, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm not sure I can actually sit still for a little while. 2 years, and we might have to do something. Anyway, I just wanted to say to everyone watching and engaged, thank you for joining us. Your questions and comments are keeping us on our toes and ready to provide you with all that you need to get you to your next location with greater ease. It's a teamwork approach as our families prepare for their moves, and our Air Force community is trying their best to set you up for success. As General Brown likes to share, success takes help, failure we can do alone. Isn't that the truth? Wishing you all a smooth transition. Have a great night or a great day. Thanks. Back to you, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Raymond and Mrs. Brown, for closing us out tonight. Thank you all for joining us who are on the line and stayed up late or got up early to be here. We'll stay on the line for a few more moments to gather up all of your questions. Don't be discouraged if we didn't answer them. We will, we promise we will, and we hope to get them back to you by next week. So we'll compile them and be on the lookout for those coming to your inbox. Please be sure to bookmark the website that we've been posting, the AFPC Key Spouse page, so you can see the different things that we've posted in there, as well as more information on the Key Spouse program. There's also past engagement series that you can view in there and follow-up information. And we hope that we will see you all the next time around. Thank you so much.